How much do you think you can score with that?
3 caps.
You can
Good
always,
acid.
yeah? Have you tried them?
Yeah, I was up on it. Very good.
Well, here's the 10.
Okay. 3 caps.
Good.
You are looking at a traveler who just bought a ticket for a very special kind of a trip. The cost, a few dollars, and his mind, over which he will very shortly have little or no control.
I'm interested in the question of what does it say about the human mind. And as an educational psychologist, my question always is, what's the fullest development of the mind and how do we get there? And psychedelics are one of the answers of using our mind in different mind-body states. Yeah, I'm Tom Roberts. I'm a professor emeritus in educational psychology, and I teach a course called Foundations of Psychedelic Studies in our honors program every fall. I was in graduate school at Stanford, just south of San Francisco, in the late 1960s. Okay, and that was the time of all the psychedelic stuff going on in the Bay Area. So that interested me. And then I had my first psychedelic experience in February 1970. And I was interested in it personally. I almost finished my doctorate. Actually, I did finish it while I was teaching in Northern. And a friend of mine had been offered a job in Northern and took a job at Goddard College in Vermont. And I thought I had a job at Fairleigh Dickinson in New Jersey. And I ran across, and he said, "Oh, I'm not taking this job at this place called Northern Illinois University. Why don't you apply there?" He wrote down the name of the department chair, and I put it in my jeans. Well, you know, a week later, I was doing my laundry. I put my hand in my jeans, and I came out with this thing, Northern Illinois University. So, you know, I had my resume and stuff sent here, thinking that I wouldn't really want it, but this would be sort of like a backup school if Fairleigh Dickinson didn't want me. And then 3 days later, I got a call from Northern, and in the mail that day was a letter from Fairleigh Dickinson saying, "Sorry, our job will not be funded, not be available." So I came to Northern. It was beautiful. It was in July, beautiful July day. There was a concert going on. I came in Route 38. There was a conference going on in the lagoon. A nice evening day. Just, you know, how beautiful it can be in the summer. And imagine bands out at the lagoon. I thought, hey, this is a nice place. I'd like to come here for a year or maybe 2. Okay, so now it's been 40. Well, when I first started teaching it, they sort of thought, well, let's let them teach it, I think. And at that time, Northern was situated that they had any class that would have enough students they were willing to have meet. Then that was in like 1981. And then when later on, since I was already teaching it, they really couldn't say, you know, don't teach this course, you know, it's something we shouldn't be studying. Although I think probably there's sort of like a sense, although nobody would ever say anything, of a sort of passive resistance, or, you know, isn't that something that disappeared with Timothy Leary in the 60s, or why study that now, and so forth. In the 1980s, I got to thinking that people who've done psychedelics are like an ethnic group, although they come from lots of different ethnic groups, but they're a group of people who've had a particular type of experience and an orientation to the world in a certain way. And I was thinking, well, other groups, you know, like there's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and there's Columbus Day, and there's St. Patrick's Day, and all these days that have to do with identification with a group. And I thought, well, you know, psychedelic people ought to have a day. So I started this Bicycle Day. It's called Bicycle Day because that's when Albert Hofmann, the guy who discovered LSD, took his first intentional trip, and it was on a Monday. The previous Friday, he had absorbed some action accidentally. And then that was on April 16th. And Monday the 19th, he actually took a dose so small that he couldn't possibly affect him. It was 250 micrograms, which is a very strong dose of LSD, but nothing that had been that strong before. And people didn't believe it because no drugs had been that strong. And he rode his bike home, and he described riding the bike home in sort of the weird countryside that he was going through.
Where are you? Oh, sorry. Stop that, man. Stop that. Stop that freaking business.
Let me give you an idea, just the barest idea of what a bum trip can be like. Voices courtesy of those who've been there.
Wait a minute. Look, he's going.
Some people clearly shouldn't do psychedelics, like people who are pre-psychotic or having basically in a stressful period in their life. They might want to do it under the guidance of a psychotherapist, but not, for their own growth. The sort of fear of psychedelics, both real and unreal, is basically culture-wide. But there are, for example, there is research going on now. To do research in drugs, you have to get a local approval of, like, the Institutional Review Board, like it would be Northern here. And then to use an illegal drug, you have to get approval from the Drug Enforcement Administration and the FDA. So it takes a long time to get approvals. And a lot of review boards are sort of wary about it because of the bad reputation psychedelics have. But the reputation is slowly changing, and as that changes, more courses and more research will be done. And it is changing. It's coming along very nicely. For example, at Johns Hopkins in 2006, they talked about a study that they had just done on using psilocybin, which is the psychoactive ingredient in psychoactive mushrooms, and gave people, about 2/3 of the people who were their subjects had either the most meaningful experience in their life or one of the 5 most meaningful, or the most significant experience of their life, or one of the 5 most significant experiences. And this was covered on TV and radio and newspapers, and there were over 300 news reports on this. So people are sort of catching on. But there's this fear left over from the 50s and 60s about, you'll drive people crazy and they'll jump off buildings and stuff like that. Well, one of the things I ask about early in the class to my class is, how do your parents react when you tell them you're taking a class in Foundations of Psychedelic Studies?